Yo, what's good, everybody? It is your boy Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is part 1 of What If Deku made a super suit, and I want to say just right off the rack and right off the bat that there is minor spoilers. There are going to be spoilers in this video, or just spoilers kind of like in general for the My Hero Academia manga. So if you don't want to be spoiled like at all, then feel free to click off the video. But now that that warning has been said, at the end of My Hero Academia manga, we also deal with Deku getting a quote-unquote suit of armor, kind of a interpretation of it. And of course, there's been a lot of controversy with the ending of My Hero Academia, which I won't get into here. But this What If will derive the idea of him getting a super suit a little bit earlier. And I'm going to do also a little bit of the things that I would have loved to see Deku do at the beginning of My Hero Academia, and kind of slot this whole super suit thing properly into the story, or at least in my eyes what properly into the story would be. Now with that said, let's get into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya has a normal childhood, but his normal childhood would consist of getting minorly bullied, which to be honest is kind of normal for quite a few different people probably in the world, and probably for the mass majority of people in the world in general. Now, he would be getting bullied more specifically because he doesn't actually have a quirk. And I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of a messed up thing, especially when you think about the idea of people not having quirks being kind of relatively like common. Like, it's not too rare to not, or to have somebody not have a quirk. I mean, legitimately, I believe, if I'm correct, it's about 20% of the population that don't have a quirk. But he would get massively bullied for this. But during this time, Izuku would be studying hero quirks, studying hero fight styles, and he would even be studying so much more. I mean, Izuku would go through kind of life, or early life, just writing everything down, studying as much as possible, and frankly, all of this would be massively beneficial. All of this would be beneficial to the point that, well, Izuku would actually see kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel for doing the things that he's doing. Now, what I mean by that is, Izuku actually believes that he can be a hero, but he believes that he needs to take some steps in the right direction to actually be the hero he wants to be. And that would include, well, getting strong enough. And this would start with Izuku kind of, well, training, right? He would start with training, you know, normal like push-ups, sit-ups, and all that good stuff. But on top of that, he would think to himself, okay, what else do I have to actually do? Now, he would think to himself that he also needs to probably learn some sort of martial arts or some sort of way to kind of defend himself. But to be honest, that's easier said than done. It's really hard to learn stuff like this. And, well, it's really hard to learn and do really anything to this degree. So he decides that he's going to, you know, continue his studies and continue doing more and more things so that he can learn better ways of approaching the idea of being a hero. This would even lead him down the pathway of actually studying robotics and studying different technology, leading to him actually getting a scholarship of some sorts with a hero agency. And Izuku is extremely intelligent, and that's one thing that we kind of fall off from, to be honest, in My Hero Academia. But in this reality, Izuku continues to build on that knowledge, and then eventually gets a scholarship where he's working with a bunch of different support heroes and also support students even far before UA. And this would be a perfect opportunity for Izuku, a literal perfect one, because Izuku Midoriya would be massively benefiting from learning about the technology and also learning about what he would need to build himself a quote-unquote super suit. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Izuku's not gonna make anything too high-tech, too insane, but he actually does make some sort of exoskeleton that allows him to kind of do certain things that he would never be able to do. No, it does not boost his physical strength. And no, it doesn't do kind of insane superhuman feats, but what it does do is he programs it with almost every single martial arts known to man. Now, of course, just having it programmed with different martial arts doesn't mean he's going to be able to do it. But this would allow him to actually kind of benefit from the super suits or the exoskeleton super suit, just the rhythm, the patterns, and everything. And this allows him to learn a ton of fighting styles in a very quick fashion. And he continues working with these support heroes and support students and support agency all the way up until he's around 15 years old. So at the end of the day, Izuku just utilizes his mind, his brain, and as much of his, possible options as he can throughout this time. Like I said, all the way up until he's 15 years old, he is working with this agency. He's working on this quote-unquote suit of armor, and they even make some prototypes that are actual suits of armor. Like we're talking about, like the padding, maybe metal plating, stuff like that to actually enhance his strength. But to be honest, it's not going amazing. It's kind of awkward. So he does decide to kind of stick with the exo type skeleton prototype, at least just for now. And yes, it does make him pretty vulnerable, but at least at the moment it is massively beneficial, especially for just flat out learning new things and also learning how to defend himself. And soon the last day of middle school would come to the forefront, and he would be hearing from his teacher about this and that, about, hey, like, I know all of you want to be heroes and stuff like that. And Izuku would listen and hope for the best and, all this stuff. And the teacher would end up exposing that him and Bakugo actually are trying to get into UA. And Bakugo immediately berates him, saying that he's useless, that he's unable to do anything. He's just a Deku, and that there's no way he's going to get into UA. There's no chance at all. But Izuku counters it and says, look, I've been working hard. I've been training. I've been working on prototypes. I've been making items and different specialty like things that are going to help me and so on. And everybody laughs at him, saying that he's basically just a support hero. That's what he is. I mean, it's obvious. That's what he should stick to. I mean, didn't he get that scholarship as well for being a support hero? Like, come on, you're useless. You don't have a quirk. You might as well just stay in the lab, and that's it. And you might as well support the real heroes, in which Bakugo would point at himself, saying that he is going to be one of those real heroes. But Izuku ignores it, thinking that this exoskeleton, this armor, these prototypes that he's making, it's that first step into basically going to be a hero. It's that first step that he needs. He's gotten a lot of funding and a lot of scholarships and stuff like that, and these prototypes have, been getting better and better, but at the end of the day, they're not perfect. At the end of the day, they're lacking something. And he knows that, and he knows that that's the case. And eventually this would lead to him leaving his school for the day. And of course, Bakugo would blast his journal, which would absolutely infuriate Izuku, and also tell him to basically jump off the roof of the building, which is a horrible thing for someone like Izuku to hear. Izuku would be kind of defeated. He would head off home, going underneath a bridge, and eventually he would be confronted by the sludge villain. And everything that happens in the normal My Hero Academia sludge villain type of battle would go exactly the same, right? Izuku would be terrified. I mean, yes, he knows martial arts, and yes, he's practiced the movements, and he's practiced, mastering different martial arts and different things like that, but he's still unable to defeat something as absolutely terrifying as the thing that's in front of him. I mean, at the end of the day, he is dealing with a sludge villain, a villain that is made of complete and utter sludge, and a villain that would be resistant to literally all attacks that are going to be sent his way. So what does he do? Well, he's gonna have to try to run, and running, it's not gonna go as well as he would really want it to go. So he would try to run away from the sludge villain, but he would be unable to do so. The sludge villain catching him and then trying to actually take over his body. But luckily enough, Izuku hears, somebody busting out from below the ground, or, coming out from a manhole cover from the sewer. And this Well, this is the number one hero, All Might. All Might would then blast the sludge villain to little pieces, sending Izuku flying. But when Izuku would wake up from being knocked out by All Might, yes, knocked out because he was slammed into the wall, and he would see All Might and freak out and ask for an autograph and all this stuff. I mean, he would want to talk to All Might. At the end of the day, this is his hero. And he would try to ask All Might some questions, but All Might would just jump away. So Izuku grabs onto his leg, and All Might would have to, well, eventually land on a nearby building. And he would ask All Might, is there any chance, is there any way that a quirkless support-like hero could be a true hero? He doesn't want to just support the other heroes. He wants to be on the front lines. He wants to fight. He wants to save people just like him. And All Might, well, he says no. He says that there's a good chance that he'd just fall because of it. That he should stay away from the front lines. That he should help those other heroes in need with whatever tech he can make and whatever ideas he ends up having. That's how you're going to help them. But you're never going to be the hero like he wants to be. That Izuku's never going to be a hero like All Might. He's never going to be able to stand on those front lines, never going to be able to take those blows. But he should try and find his way to be a hero differently. But Izuku would be crushed by this. Hearing this makes him shut down. I mean, at the end of the day, all Izuku wants to do is be like All Might. He's tried everything. He's stepped up his game in terms of technology, in terms of studying, in terms of breaking down and analyzing the quirks of other heroes. He's tried everything. Everything. At least that's what it feels like. But it seems like it's just not enough. It's just not enough. All Might would leave and Izuku would follow as well, leaving soon after All Might. And then eventually, well, Izuku would be walking and he would hear something. Crashes, explosions, and eventually he would see that the sludge villain escaped. The sludge villain has gone out of the bottles that he was placed into, the capture that he was in, and now the sludge villain has someone he knows. And yes, he might treat him like garbage, but someone he does mildly care about. Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo is stuck within the sludge villain, and Izuku looks, and his whole body would run chills, and then out of nowhere would heat up and feel like he has a massive fever. And the nervousness, well, it would fill his body with adrenaline, and without a second thought, Izuku would go dashing in. He would pull out his backpack, and he would immediately slap something on his own back as if he's just attaching something to his back, being that his exoskeleton. This allows him to move just a little tiny bit quicker and also be a little bit tiny bit stronger. But it also allows his own body to basically understand his own movements that he's doing in real time. He believes that this might just help him a little bit, and maybe the martial arts will allow him to fluidly just motion his way to trying saving Bakugo. And immediately he would throw, you know, pencils and staplers and stuff like that at the sludge villain's eyes. And he would actually stagger the sludge villain a little bit. He would grab onto Bakugo and try to pull him out, but he can't. Bakugo is just too far in there. He tries to throw his backpack at the sludge villain's eyes once again, and it lands, but the sludge villain struggles as he grabs the leg of Izuku. Izuku tries to peel his way off and tries to break free, but he can't. Izuku struggles, and he grabs onto Bakugo, and he places his feet within the sludge villain and yanks Bakugo out, pulling him clean out of the sludge villain and kind of throwing him out of harm's way. Izuku looks as he's about to be sucked into the sludge villain entirely, but then out of nowhere, he would hear something. He would hear the sound that sounds so familiar. He would hear the same person that he listened to countless of times, and the same person that he's heard on the TV more than he could possibly imagine. And this was All Might, and he would line up and say, "Detroit Smash." Boom. In one single moment, one foul swoop, the sludge villain smashes into pieces. And well, Izuku knows exactly what this means, that he just overused the power that he has left, and it was all because of him. Now, in Izuku's mind, he just did something bad. He failed, and even the other heroes kind of reassure this, that Izuku did something wrong, and that he shouldn't have done that, and blah 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 and blah, and all this stuff, right? And they're telling him, like, this was a horrible idea. Like, why did you do this? Like, this was not something you should ever do. This is how you get hurt, and this is, all this stuff. And Bakugo would be praised as someone that, is like a hero, and Bakugo this and Bakugo that. But eventually, on a walk home, Izuku would hear something. He would hear All Might. All Might would tell him that he was wrong, that everything that he himself, that All Might said was wrong, that the kid has instincts more than any other hero could possibly imagine. The kid has this thing that he jumps into immediately, would jump into the line of fire without even thinking. That's what a hero does. Protect one person at all costs. He'll sacrifice himself just so one person can survive. That's how a hero is born, and that is truly what a hero is. And Izuku stands there in shock to hear this, and All Might says that he wants him to become a hero. He wants him to become the next, All Might. In which Izuku would be confused, and then All Might would tell him to meet him at Dagobah Beach in the morning. And that's exactly what happens. All Might and Izuku would meet at Dagobah Beach, and then would lead to a conversation about One for All and basically the quirk that he wants to give Izuku. But he tells Izuku that he's gonna have to train, work hard, and get his body ready for the force of One for All. And Izuku nods his head and says he 100% understands that this is something he's been waiting for, something he's been trying to seek after. He's been working on suits of armor. He's been working on different things that would allow him to actually amp his own strength and power up. And All Might hears this and is shocked to hear it, and he asks, what has he been doing? In which Izuku says that they have a clunky, suit of armor that's, to be honest, not very good. And the other one is kind of like a weird exoskeleton, you could call it, but it's not as advanced as you think. It just takes information from the internet or from data that is basically put within it, and it helps the user kind of learn things a little bit quicker. And it has helped Izuku quite a bit, in which All Might is shocked to hear this, and he asks what has he learned, and Izuku tells him that he's actually learned quite a bit of martial arts, and he doesn't know what level he is in a technical sense, but he basically knows quite a bit of martial arts. He knows a good amount of kickboxing, karate, different types of fighting styles like Muay Thai, either leg kick heavy, or punch heavy, maybe boxer or striker heavy. And that's kind of like the idea that he's kind of been going down. And All Might is completely taken back by this and says that this would put him in a very good position, and that this was a great idea for him to approach things with. And if he wanted to, he could probably get real rich off of this whole exoskeleton learning thing, even though it is kind of like a prototype, but it is definitely ever evolving so that he can learn more and more. But he tells All Might that he has no interest in being a millionaire, no interest in getting all this money. He wants to be the best hero he possibly can be, and that was the whole point of him making this so-called super suit, in which All Might tells him, stick with the simple stuff, the stuff that's going to help him learn, the stuff that's going to help him develop. Stick with that and continue to develop it more and more, so that maybe it's going to benefit him even more in the future. Stick with that and you'll definitely see results. In which Izuku nods his head, and they begin training over the course of 10 months. Now, this doesn't take 10 months for him to actually train. It takes around 8, because Izuku actually has been training for quite a bit. He's been doing martial arts, he's been doing his normal training regimens and stuff like that. So it doesn't actually take 10 months for him to clean Dagobah Beach. So he's able to actually have 2 months of utilizing something known as One for All. he's able to utilize the quirk of All Might, and he's, well, you know, after he eats the hair of All Might, he eats the hair, and then now he can utilize One for All. And utilizing One for All, I'm not gonna lie, is a struggle for Izuku. And I'm not gonna lie, All Might also doesn't help at all, because All Might's not the best teacher. Actually, furthest thing from it, he's kind of trash at teaching. Now, he does help from time to time, and Izuku utilizes his martial arts technique and also what he knows from, or what he's learned throughout this time, and he actually finds a way to utilize One for All without actually shattering his bones. I mean, martial arts has taught him quite a bit, and he's been from dojo to dojo every so often, and it has taught him, you know, mindfulness and control and utilizing relaxation in a combat setting, but not being too relaxed, because you don't want to obviously get your head taken off. But he understands different developments and different ways of utilizing martial arts, if that's from karate to judo to jujitsu, whatever you could think of. And a lot of those things take different approaches, and Izuku takes the approach of trying to utilize One for All at a minor level, right? Try to pull back on it. So he actually utilizes One for All at 5%. And it does take, literally, no joke, it takes 2 months for him to kind of get a grasp on it. But it also allows him to develop his exosuit, to understand what works and doesn't work with One for All. So now he's kind of developing this exo type of suit that eventually would turn into his actual hero outfit, being kind of like a prototype too. But it actually helps him be more resistant when utilizing One for All. It's as if it reduces the strain on his body and full body when actually utilizing it. Now, this does help massively, because now after a 2-month period, instead of being able to only use 5%, he's actually able to use 15%. And this massively helps Izuku, because this is a lot more power that he can actually utilize in a very controlled manner. Now, after all this training, after the 10 months are all over, he would finally lead himself to the actual final exams, or the actual, the actual UA entrance exams is what I meant. Now, the UA entrance exams is a pretty basic thing. Izuku is very smart, and he studied up on quite a bit of things, so he's going to do pretty well on the written portion. Now, the practical is a little bit different. He is very, very quick and very, very fast, so he's able to destroy robot after robot, but he's kind of doing it in a very controlled and calculated way. He's not trying to blitz and destroy robots as quick as possible and destroy everything, blah, 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 right? He believes that he needs to stay controlled. Everything is a lesson, and everything is development, especially for the suit that he's currently utilizing, being that of the prototype 2. It's basically like his normal, like a normal hero outfit, but with a kind of like exo type of skeleton threaded through it that continues to learn more and more. And eventually he hopes that that exoskeleton like kind of suit of armor becomes even more developed to a completely different, insane degree. But obviously for now, that's not the case. Now he continues to destroy robot after robot after robot, and he, you know, racks up a good amount of points, and he actually does quite well. That's until he sees the 0-point robot actually trying to, well, obliterate and stomp on a girl that is trapped under some rubble. Luckily, Izuku is able to be fast enough to brush off all the rubble, pick her up, and just run away. He doesn't want to take on this giant robot, knowing that he would have to crank up his One for All the way to 100%, but he knows that this is probably the worst idea possible, and there's a good chance he would be just shattering a bunch of limbs, like for no reason. So he just takes her away and puts her into a safe spot, in which she thanks him. And Ochaku Uraka would ask about him and ask stuff about him, but Izuku would be so enthralled about what he's been able to do, what he's capable of, and how well his exoskeleton-like suit has been actually working, that he doesn't even think about it. This suit of armor, or this kind of super suit that he's created, has just excelled his expectations, and he just wants to get back to analyze the data that he got from actually this UA entrance exam. Now, there's obviously high likelihood that he passes this exam. I mean, at the end of the day, when he would get his letter, he would be told that he did. Now, initially, it was actually said that he was going to be more of like a middle of the pack type of guy, or in terms of like a middle of the pack type of hero student. But actually, he tipped the scales just a little bit. And yes, it seems as if Izuku actually landed at number 3 in the charts, in which Izuku is completely psyched by this. I mean, oh, this is fantastic. I mean, he knows that he, probably just got enough robots to like make sure that he passed, but he didn't want to also overdo it, not knowing if it was going to add extra strain because of longevity with One for All. But it seems like he actually got 3rd place in the entirety of the exam because of the save on Ochako Uraraka, which this makes him extremely happy, and he's not even thinking about the idea of who got first, because, well, Katsuki Bakugo got first. Now, Izuku doesn't know this, and he doesn't really worry about this, but this would lead him to the first day of UA. Now, when he would get there, Bakugo would not be happy at all, and Izuku would ask what place he actually ended up getting, and Bakugo says he is the number 1 student. And I mean, do you really think otherwise? Like, there's no way that he wasn't gonna be the number 1 student. In which Izuku nods his head and says, hey, I mean, we've always known Kachan was amazing, right? Like, blah, blah, blah. And Izuku would eventually say that, yeah, he placed number 3, in which Bakugo would be livid at. How the hell did you place number 3 with your stupid little gadgets? I mean, you should be in the support course, in which everyone is shocked to hear this, in which Izuku does say that he's made technology, and he is, definitely support heavy, and he actually got permission to work with the support heroes a little bit more, but still, he is in the hero course, and that's exactly what he's going to lean toward more than support hero itself. Everybody is psyched to hear this. I mean, this is pretty damn cool. The fact is, we are dealing with somebody who's a hero or in the hero course, but also has the potential of being a high-level support course student as well. A lot of the students are pretty big fans of this and actually immediately greet themselves to Izuku, telling him like, wow, you're amazing, and we saw what you did in the UA entrance exam. And Ochako even tries to walk up to him and tell him like, oh, thank you again, and blah, 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 all that stuff. And eventually, well, Aizawa would tell them all to shut their mouths, because they, of course, have a quirk assessment to get to. And that quirk assessment would be a pretty basic one. I'm not going to lie, Izuku is not going to be excelling at the ball throw like he did initially, because Izuku did 100% of One for All with 1 finger. And yes, don't get me wrong, using a whole arm would be beneficial, but he's only going to be utilizing it around 10 to 15%, depending if he's actually allowed to have his exoskeleton suit on him. So there's a good chance that he actually has to restrict himself a little bit, but he's still able to launch the ball pretty damn far, but Bakugo would definitely beat him. But in terms of the other type of things he has to do, in terms of the grip strength test, he does pretty damn good on. The side steps, the speed test, all of those things he is pretty high level on, right? He's maybe not number 1, but he's definitely in the top 5 to top 7. So he's easily able to kind of brush his way through the quirk assessment test. And of course, this was important because Aizawa did tell them like, hey, if you don't actually pass this exam or pass this test and you're the last place person, then you are out of here. Like, you are expelled. And everybody is freaking out about this, but eventually he would have revealed that, it was a hoax, but, he basically shows that it's a hoax later on when the person, being that of Hagakure, actually fails and then comes back the very next day. So technically, it wasn't anything too crazy. And technically, we weren't actually dealing with a, actual full-on expulsion of the sorts. Now, after that first day, that quirk assessment test, we are dealing with a Bakugo who is a little bit infuriated about how good Izuku is doing. I mean, he's a quirkless nerd. He should not be doing anything. But Izuku tells him that he actually has a quirk now. He must have been just a late bloomer, and that whole sludge villain incident actually probably did the whole awakening process for him. But Bakugo says that he better wish that they never go head to head, because if they do, he's going to end him. He's going to end his life on the spot. And as Bakugo says this, All Might would come rushing in, saying, "I am here." And as he says this, he tells them all that they're going to have a bit of a training session and they should all get ready and get on their super outfits or superhero outfits. Izuku looks at his own super suit, seeing that there is even more renovations. There's a little tag on it that has a sign or sign name of Mei Hatsume, someone who Izuku actually knows a little bit about. Didn't actually work with her very much because, you know, wasn't just in the same bracket as her, but did hear about her. And there's a little tag that says that she did, you know, some tweaks to the suit, made it a little bit more comfortable. And the whole idea of this exoskeleton embedded in this suit is a brilliant idea. And that she wants to know more about it ASAP, to basically come by, and she wants to know more about this whole suit thing from him specifically. So Izuku, I mean, he'll take any upgrade he can get, putting on the suit, and I'm not gonna lie, the dude would look very dapper. I mean, it would be like an enhanced version of his, I would say later on suit, more like a, not his like first, you know, horrible looking suit that his mother made, but is more like, you know, modernized suit, but it's more enhanced. You can see that a little bit of like energy is flowing through it. So maybe like similar to the end of manga version of the My Hero Academia suit that he wears, but more like a dumbed down version of it, not as like super techy or whatever. So it's more of a dumbed down version of that one, but definitely a little bit more techy than the original. Now, he would put it on and feel good. Like, he would feel really, really good, and he would be excited to what All Might is about to show them and about to do. And obviously this would lead them into the training session of heroes versus villains, and this would stack him against Bakugo. And we already know what's going to happen when Bakugo and Izuku go head to head. I mean, Bakugo has already threatened to take his life, so Izuku is not taking anything for granted here. So after 5 minutes of planning, him and Ochaku Uraraka will face off with Bakugo and Tenya Ida. But in all honesty, I could easily say that Bakugo is in for a very rude awakening, because Izuku has been training. He's been building up, and he is ready. So heroes versus villains, Bakugo versus Izuku is about to begin. But that is going to have to wait until part 2 of What If Deku Made a Super Suit. And I've been debating with how I wanted to title this. I could have titled it What If Deku Made a Super Suit earlier on, or what if Deku had a super suit early, or armor early, or something like that, right? But I decided, you know what, let's just call it What If Deku Made a Super Suit. Nonetheless, though, if you enjoyed, please show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. I hope all you have an amazing day. Later.